So yeah, new camera. Welcome back. Slightly different view. Now you look huge. There we go.
Yeah.
Don't want you to be too big for your britches over here.
Get you moving it out of perspective.
Just trying to okay, seems about right.
I wonder if we could AI render over our videos or something, or just like try filters or something.
What exactly, like anime filter this whole podcast?
Just filter the whole podcast, or like do some.
Well, we were talking about this yesterday, right? How like anime outpaces like all reality, other creation, right?
Well, it's just like it takes over search engine results. Like you're trying to. I feel like anytime I try to Google random things like Japanese writers from 100 years ago, or like
what's the anime that overloaded that?
Oh, I think it's called Bungo Stray Dogs.
Okay.
And it's just like I know nothing about it. I haven't seen it, but like the characters are named after Japanese writers.
Right. But it's like, not actually the writer themselves.
No, it's just like
it's not even a depiction of the writer.
Well, I guess it's like slightly influenced by them or something, but it's very like.
But they're not writers in the anime or anything.
I don't think so. I think it's just literally the basic. I don't know, superpowers. You know,
eat your mic a bit.
Okay, I thought it was too loud.
No, I think it's all right.
You think it's all right? Okay.
Yeah, this is
getting.
No, I think
thought it was being too loud.
It's kind of funny. So the writer of, is it too loud in your headphones? I can turn you down.
It's fine.
Okay.
Trying to I haven't done it in a while. So,
yeah, we're a little rusty here.
A little rusty. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So it's like the writer of the anime basically was like, "Hey, I love your work, so I'm gonna like overload the search results. So no one can
using
find
characters.
Yeah.
Well, it's like if there was like some. I don't know, like if someone did like an anime and like it was based on the U.S. presidents or something, and like every time you Googled like I don't know Abe Lincoln, like some random anime, like you like after a while you sort of be like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Like it's not like if those results are like given equal par with the actual person, it's a little bit like what,
what
like is this that big of a thing?
Right.
Like I Google like Akutagawa and.
I don't know.
It was just a writer, right?
Okay.
And then like the anime character from this anime comes up, like as much as the actual writer,
right?
Who's considered like one of the most important Japanese writers ever.
Yesterday, we were up to some ritual magic. Not really, not quite.
Yeah.
Can we say that?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
We can talk about.
But we Googled Paimon, right?
Oh yeah.
And I can't remember what anime that came up from.
Well, there's ones they've done like H.P. Lovecraft's, creatures as well, like Cthulhu
and they're just like cute anime.
Yeah. Like there's a bunch of anime that's based on that. So then that crowds out the actual results, right? So everything's like being processed by anime or something, or
anime is like a parasite that like overrides reality or something.
Or it's just like rendering reality or something.
We see it happening here in real time in Ikebukuro, right? Like, how long's that animate thing been open? Is that fairly recent, or is that always been there?
It's always been there, I think.
Has the otaku scene around it been expanding, or?
I think it's definitely, it's at least steady. I mean, it's definitely at least steady, stable. Yeah. I don't know if it's, I don't know. Yeah. I was in this restaurant last night when I left here last night, and it was just around here. It was like some Chinese KFC. It felt like a Chinese KFC knockoff.
This isn't the J Chicken one, or
it might have been.
Is it the one over on your side?
No, it was over here. It was over on the west side.
Oh, I have no idea what
this
is
like
then.
Deep level Bukuro.
Yeah.
Psychogeography or something, but I think it might have been the same chain, but it was over here.
Oh, interesting.
It was over on the west side.
Yeah.
So it's like some Chinese, it's very low tier. I don't know, Chinese KFC knockoff or something.
Deep fried chicken.
Yeah,
dishes,
and has
like
the same, KFC replica items, like, the chicken twister wrap and like the bucket. And so I was hanging out there and getting some chicken, and they're just like playing some recent anime, and it's just like so generic. I mean, it's just like it felt like it was produced by like AI or something. Like nothing about it seemed, I don't know, like organic, or like no one, like obviously no one had like drawn it.
Right.
The voices seemed like they could have just been like templates or something, like the most generic voice acting, if it was even human act, like
predictable
characters. Story time's predictable, and like character movements are all kind of like wonky, and like it doesn't have any of that actual animation feel. When things have been like hand animated versus when it's just some program. And and there's like repetition. Like crowd scenes, like you can kind of see it's all the same model.
Right.
Like it's just like they've duplicated the same template. Like it just felt like so inorganic.
Yeah.
And I was watching, I was like, what am I even like watching? I mean, it doesn't. I mean, I guess it's like a story, but it doesn't feel like.
For like the computer template, the ones, this isn't anime, but I've been a fan of Archer.
Okay,
Did you watch any Archer?
Ages like 10 years ago or something.
But like they use that kind of like storyboard software type thing. I don't know how they do the action scenes. But,
that one, I feel like
it's very like writing and dialogue focused. Right? So it's not like
the
storyline is secondary almost.
But that's a very like. That was like a very written show. So like a lot of, but I mean, this was just like a literal just template anime where you're just like, I think both the script and the voices could have been AI, and I would have been surprised.
It's amazing that the market's not saturated, right? Like, how do they keep cranking stuff
out? That's what I was wondering too, man. I was like,
and people keep like, where's the money in this? I don't get it.
Oh,
Is it the merch?
Yeah, it's the merch. But I was thinking that too. I was like, who is this for? Like, is it actually for kids? Is it for otaku? Like, is it for? I'm like, who's into this? Like, I just couldn't get any real.
Yeah,
like it just seemed to be like some generic high school sports club anime or something, and
just somewhat high Q is it called, the volleyball one?
Oh, I can't even. Anyway, but I mean, they all have the same kind of template, but yeah, it just. Like, if you told me it was 100% AI, I would have just been like, I can believe. Like, I'm sure it's not, but I could easily be like, there was no human involvement in this. And it's just like a.
Have you seen any of the like Sora stuff? It's OpenAI, right? But like AI video generation.
I've seen some really weird.
On like Instagram
out there.
And stuff,
right? I've seen some of the really experimental stuff on Instagram, which is quite amazing.
It's quite amazing, right?
Some quite amazing.
But like obviously you can tell it's AI, but I guess the fact that this is software that you can put your credit card in and use for like $10 a month. And it's I noticed when Sora first became released to the public, instantly Instagram was flooded with these, like all the suggested reels were like AI stuff. And it's funny that you see like humans replicating like successful real trends with AI. So like what I got is I don't know if your algorithm has served this up to you, but it's this kind of like trad Asian like basically what the channel is would be like a good looking Chinese girl living in a rural village, cooking and stuff, and like going about her life, and some of it's kind of humorous, some of it's kind of traddy, I guess, like very kind of like return to kind of values, and so I saw that in AI, right? So like beautiful Asian girl like chopping vegetables, and like it looks like it's like hand captured, but you take a closer look and it's AI, right?
Like
it's, it's too smooth, like just something's not right with it, right? So people are like plugging in like kind of existing social media short video trends, generating AI and trying to like profit off that, right?
I'm sure they are. Yeah.
But yeah, crazy where it's going, I suppose, right? Like, how long until you can have like a, you know, Alien sequel movie generated just for your viewing?
Yeah. Well, that's the issue with a lot of these. A lot of like actors are concerned with this because they're like, well, I mean, they're already kind of doing
like
it, like
extras, especially.
Well, not just extras, but like even stars. So they're like, well, I mean, they've even kind of done this with like some actors who've died, right?
Right.
And they're just like using AI to like,
yeah,
you know, feeding in like 5 movies they did in like, I don't know, 1972.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of generate
yeah,
convincing enough new characters based on them.
yeah.
So it's sort of like, it does get into a bit of an ethics thing where it's like, well, they didn't really like, not only can they like not really sign off on that,
Yeah.
but you know what, they're not really getting compensated.
Right.
They're not, well, I don't know. Yeah. So it's like, you know, what, if you sign up to a studio, do they own your image?
Yeah.
Like in perpetuity or?
Yeah. Well, it's, I mean, like, I'm sure this will all be ironed out in the courts in like a decade, but in the meantime, there's people who are
it's just like the wild,
screwed.
It's just like the Wild West, right? Like it's just,
apparently the thing now is like they'll basically get extras to sign away their likeness. And then like now you'll always be, well, A, you're never working again.
Yeah.
And B, you're going to be an extra in every like Universal Pictures forever.
Forever,
right?
eternity, right? Or, yeah.
Who were we talking about? And there's another tangent that we should that I'd like to bring up, but just briefly, there was someone we know was the actor in the video game, the voice actor, or like it was modeled after him. It was like a fighting game. Is this ringing a bell? It was like Street Fighter. No,
it's not ringing a bell.
Might be mixing stuff up. My memories. My memories
ringing a bell.
Weird here. But AI.
Really need a new name for it because I just feel like it's like concept drift at this point.
AI.
Yeah, man. Because if you're reading like, it's like if you go back and read a book from like 1982 or something, it's like using the term AI,
right?
And then you're like talking about what we're talking about.
Yeah,
like it's not the same.
It's not the same
thing, man. So like image modeling software using applied statistical data sets. I mean, it's not really like an artificial it's not really this is always the rock I crash on where I was like, I feel if there was a real term for this, like literally no one would care. You know, it's like saying, I don't know, it's like calling it like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but well, like if you called it like an angel or something, like no one would be happy with that because like scientists would be like, well, it's an applied statistical data set. Religious people wouldn't like it because like it's not an angel, right? Like no one would be happy with that,
right?
So like in the same way, by calling it AI, like not only are we misrepresenting what it is, but I feel like it biases people against it.
Yeah,
because you're like, oh, the creepy like an artificial intelligence sounds unnatural and but if you're like, dude, it's like a computer that like mashes data, like it's not,
well,
it's not really like it's not an intelligence, and it's not really,
we're living in this like buffer zone where in like the cutting edge moments of technology where all the like concepts aren't fully permeating into the culture.
But like you could just, but concept drift is so, like, I feel like concept drift is
it's not like concept drift yet. It's like concept definement, right? Like,
well, but it like to the extent that language becomes purely metaphorical, it becomes kind of useless. So like this is not a telephone, right? It's a computer, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's not a computer either, but it's a smartphone.
It's more of a but
it's closer to a smart computer.
It's a digital computer. Like it's not a telephone is something that.
But I mean, is this recorder a computer? Like
which one?
The pod track that we're recording on.
Well, it kind of is. I mean, it
has chips. It's
a recorder,
screen,
but it would be more accurate to call it
a gramophone.
a computer. It's certainly closer to a computer.
It's closer to a computer, yeah.
So a telephone is. Well, it's like
but no one calls it a telephone anymore, right?
We call it a phone, right?
We call it a phone.
So you're using a.
But phone is as much gramophone as it is telephone, right?
Well, in a way, but it's also in a sense that like. Should I think the other example I was just thinking of with the. Oh well, yeah. Like so, if you go to a movie,
right?
Like you don't call it like a
motion picture,
kinetoscope or whatever those early
what
film devices.
Well, the like the spinning
or something
thing with the slits that you like look through. Yeah.
So it like I think in a lot of cases like using purely metaphorical, inaccurate metaphorical concept drift, I think is a problem because like it does like not let people think about things accurately.
Yeah, I mean, and part of that's like marketing gimmicks, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, should we define these AI concepts? And I don't even understand them well enough to define them. I mean, like, so Sora,
you would probably
ChatGPT are actually kind of working on the same like backbone, right? Like, I think the generational AI paradigm fundamentally uses kind of similar models, but one is outputting video or images and the other is outputting language, right?
Yeah.
So statistical AI, associative, whatever. I mean,
well, but again, like if you just removed AI from that, then it would be probably more accurate.
I guess, yeah. I mean, well, okay. So what is AI then?
Well,
are we talking about like HAL 3000 or
that was what the term originally meant,
right?
So what the things that generate like ChatGPT. So it, like if you called like, okay, what are they? Applied statistical generative models, I guess.
Yeah.
So you couldn't like if you could make some new was it ASG? Like if you just made up some random new word, everyone would be like, oh, okay, we get it. But if you're like if you're using the same word for HAL 9000, then again in a very Kabbalistic way,
right?
Then anytime someone thinks of that, they're gonna subconsciously also kind of invoke HAL 9000.
Yeah.
So like I think that's one reason why people don't really like it.
It's kind of a marketing thing, I guess, right?
But it's not very good marketing, right? Because you have all these people that are like really unhappy about it.
It gets clicks. Like, well, but I mean, that's good marketing, right? People being unhappy with what you're doing is good marketing.
I mean, you're getting attention, but it also is creating a bit of a backlash where people are like very uninclined to, well, I mean, they're like resisting it, right?
Yeah.
So, but I honestly feel if it wasn't called AI, people would be like way more chill about it or like open to it maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
open to it. I don't know. I wonder how would people's attitudes shift, because it would still be the same thing and it would still be outputting the same stuff basically, right?
It would, but it wouldn't I don't think people would be like comparing it to like, I don't know, Skynet or Terminator. Like they wouldn't be using these like very
the same comparison.
They wouldn't be using the same comparisons because it wouldn't be invoking connotations of like other things which are that already accrues to that term, So
I mean generative. I don't know. But it's wild. I've discovered recently I felt like I wouldn't do stuff I was kind of interested in because it was hard to learn how to do it.
Like what?
Well, like, so today I was looking at like cooking a steak, right? Okay. Like properly, right? Like using a skillet and like, potentially might need to sear it, right? Like all the ritual around it, right? The seasoning, right? Have you ever cooked a steak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a million times.
Yeah.
This is not something that I ever felt I needed
any resistance,
consultation.
But who taught you? I guess
no one.
No one. You just figured it out, or
literally,
what?
I moved out of my parents' house, and they're like, "Yeah, now you got to cook." Like,
just trial and error steak, or what?
And they're like, "Go buy." Well, they're just like, "Cook some steak, cook some stir fry." I'm like, I literally have no idea. They're like, "Go get some olive oil, put it in the pan, put the food in, turn on the heat." Make things right.
Yeah.
So that was the year that I cooked probably the most ever in my life, because I was just like, okay, well, I guess I gotta cook for every meal for myself now, right? And I had
Did you feel like you're improving? Because I mean, there's making food, and then there's cooking.
I felt like I felt like I started getting good, man. Yeah, because I was just doing it every.
Yeah.
I didn't even think I could eat out. Well, I didn't have that much money, but I was just like, now I'm an adult. I'm like 19. I gotta cook every meal for myself. And gotta manage the kitchen and so I started cooking for my friends, and it's just pure trial and error, man.
So maybe that's just my perfectionism then.
I think I was gonna say, man, like, I feel you're just way too perfectionist about it, where it's like people have been
like, I want a decent mental model of what I'm about to do before I dive headfirst into it, because stuff gets messy when you don't have.
But that's the point.
Path,
that's the point, right? That's the point, right?
Kind
of, messiness is kind of the point, right? So
yeah. But I mean, there's different levels of preparation, I suppose, right?
But people have been
like, if you read a cookbook before you started cooking, do you think it would have yielded a better result?
I mean, not, man.
But it's just not your style, right?
I mean,
but this is my style.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
Over preparation,
but you could. But then, by the same logic, like, couldn't you just read a cookbook? Like, I mean,
yes, but it's too much to parse, right? And
maybe
AI provides a very convenient window into getting basically a pretty high level view of exactly what your questions, exactly your hang-ups, right?
Yeah.
So like in real time, you can learn just about anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so another example, steak is a funny one, but as I mentioned, I'm a bit like 48 hours, bit over 48 hours into a fast, right? And I mean, all like figuring out how to do that, right? I mean, again, you just dived right into it.
Just do it without any prep or planning. Yeah.
But like electrolytes, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, and I would maybe do that next time if I chose to do that. But I wouldn't like. I definitely don't regret like not. I mean, just doing it without.
Yeah, I mean, it could get dangerous, right?
Like, in theory, maybe, but I mean. Like how dangerous? How
like pass out or something? Pass out, hit your head alone at home, right? Like maybe you wake up from it, but I mean, like once you stop eating, you're drinking water, right? When you did,
yeah. I was just
but
drinking water.
That's like without electrolytes, you're like flushing out electrolytes, right?
Yeah.
So,
I guess, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like, so I do think it's probably helpful, but. For me, like, I would probably just, if I had a concern, and it's kind of the same thing, but I would probably just Google it, right? I would just be like, oh, what's the safe fat? Like, I wouldn't.
So, like, it's various levels of like granularity, I feel, right?
Okay,
because like with AI, basically, I was able to figure out like how to make the electrolyte solution, like, okay, how much do I take and when, and like it's just answering all your questions in the order that you ask them, right?
Yeah,
so.
It's just like a digital assistant.
Exactly. Yeah. What supplements can I take? Like, what should I be taking? What shouldn't I be taking? Right.
Yeah.
Discover that like the allergy medication I take knocks me out of ketosis because it has some like sugars as binders in it. Yeah. I don't know, just a lot of different questions, like long conversations, basically, but it's crazy the gaps it can fill in mentally for you by just basically answering your questions on demand, right? So kind of maybe it's just subject to your learning style. Like maybe you don't have as much of a use for it in that capacity.
I don't see it as being too different from like just Google or something.
It's not too different.
It's not super different. Other than Google maybe just throws up more a spread of different responses, which again I kind of prefer, because I'm like, well, where is this info coming from? Like, who's saying this? Like, if I just have no idea where information is coming from, I'm a little bit like, really? But
yeah, I mean, with ChatGPT, there's ways to like get it to double check its own work, basically.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, it's the way you like if it tells you something, you're like, hold on, that doesn't quite feel right. You can poke it at that, and if it made a genuine mistake, it'll usually correct.
it. Yeah.
So there's nuance to using it as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's interesting.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I don't doubt that it's very useful. I do think there's value to just trial and error, though. And like most of the time, if you try to do something without, kind of like, remember you asked me yesterday, you were like, how did you get this book list?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, well, I just like self-assembled it through looking into what do I need to do, right? So it was very, I mean, I wouldn't say it was like manual. Like I didn't physically go to a library.
Yeah.
But I had to like sit there and be like, oh, is this relevant? Is this, and there was not everything that's on there was maybe strictly relevant.
Right.
But like the edges of ideas kind of are relevant too, I guess. So
right.
Not everything is going to be, Keith posted something like this where he said, I think it's like based on some novel, Prydain or something. It's one of these, fantasy things from the 1950s or something. But there's this scene where it's very like Lord of the Rings or whatever, right? So one of the main characters is like some, like kid, the main protagonist or whatever, and he gets one of these like magical, elf swords or whatever,
right?
And at some point, like I don't know, he loses it or it gets stolen. So he's like, oh shit, like what do I do now, right? Because I thought I was doing, all right, but kind of seems like the sword was just kind of carrying me, right?
Right.
And the other characters are like, yeah, like we weren't going to tell you, but like actually, like you're kind of just relying on the super powerful magical sword, and like you didn't really have that much skill, right?
Right.
So he's like, oh, like I'm shit out of luck. Like, what do I do now, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, just make another sword, man, right? And he's like, like what? And they're like, just make your own sword, right? Like you got to figure out how to forge a sword that holds up and you can use, right? And it's not gonna fall apart or break or whatever. And he's like, well, how? And they're like, well, you got to figure out how to make it, right? Like first you got to figure out where the iron is. You might have to dig it out of the ground. You got to figure out what tools you need once you get the iron, because you got to smelt it and, melt, mix, like just whatever the, forging the sword, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, oh shit, like, sounds like a lot of work, right? And they're like, yeah, it kind of is, right? So anyway, he goes on a quest to like just make a fucking weapon, right? Like from scratch, right?
Eat your mic a bit.
So anyway, like this turns out to be like the quest to just like replace his missing weapon,
right?
Turns out to be like what gives him like the skills he needs to, I don't know, save the day or whatever.
Yeah.
Because like, he needs to figure out how to, use this material and then combine it with this. And so the first sword he makes like looks really beautiful.
Right.
But then he tries to use it and just breaks, right?
Right.
Or like, the next one, is like workable, but then in some other situation, it just like falls apart, right? So he has to like make, like 6 swords.
Right.
And finally, the last one he makes is like, after like, I don't know, a year or two or something, it turns out to be like a really ugly looking, unmagical looking sword.
Right.
But it's actually like really stable and solid, and it works, right?
Right.
And that's the one that he uses to save the day.
Right.
Instead of the, flashy, magical, like.
But, okay, so this is all a metaphor to not over-rely on your tools,
Well, it's not over-rely on them, but also just, like, the deeper you go into, like, what are these tools?
Right.
Like, where do they come from?
Yeah.
How do they function? You know, right?
Yeah.
So then you probably like learn, you get to the point where like, it's not that you won't need them anymore, but like you might even learn more through just doing that than like the knowledge that you get from that might end up almost being more valuable than the tool, or at least kind of equal to it, right?
So putting this back into AI, like the tool here actually would be like ability to learn and parse information.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the thing, right? And that's like, I mean, like if you get kids now that are just like, oh, ChatGPT my job profile, or ChatGPT my, you know, then
here's the thing. Here's like, okay, that will yield you terrible results, right? But if you ChatGPT, how do I write a good resume or whatever?
Well, yeah, sure.
And I mean, workshop with ChatGPT, that's how you actually use it.
Yeah.
Because it becomes a synergistic like co-pilot type experience, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you just blindly, I don't know, if you turn off critical thinking basically and just go by ChatGPT, it's not gonna yield good results, right?
But again, like critical thinking is not that easy to even get, right?
Yeah,
so like I feel like the quest for actual critical thinking kind of like is that character's quest, because like things like everyone's an expert until it's time to actually like do something, right?
Yeah.
So everyone will be like, oh, like, you know, like I think this is harder than this, or you know, like, and it's like, well, they haven't even done it, right? So like, what I mean, their opinion is worthless, right?
Yeah.
You know, people will be like pronouncing on things that they only know secondhand.
Yeah.
You know, like I think this is you know, quantum science shows. It's like, bro, like, can you do like do you know what an eigenvalue, like can you do any math relate, like it has no meaning, right? Or, you know, like, oh, magical systems are easier than this, and it's like have you tried them, or like have you done right? So everyone's an expert until you're like, well, like, can you actually do this, or is, you know? So I think actually having the critical thinking to be like, I don't actually have any idea where this is coming from, or like what it would even be, or like what the foundations of it are, right? So
wait, in terms of generated
I just mean any
just
critical
anything?
thinking, right? So you're saying like, okay, like if they use it with critical thinking, that's a valuable tool. Well, I agree, but are they actually gonna do that? I mean, is like some random 10-year-old gonna have, or like, I don't know, a teenager now gonna have any real critical thinking to where they would be able to kind of do that? I mean, I don't know, maybe they do, but I'm a little bit skeptical, because
I mean, it might be a situation of a rising tide raises all boats, or however that saying goes. I should ask ChatGPT. But critical thinking, I mean, where does that come from to begin with, right?
Well, again, like,
it's not really taught in Japan, for example, right?
That's one reason they're in kind of in trouble, right? Because they're not, well, I don't think it's really being taught anywhere, man. And I don't think it's being taught in the US really, other than maybe to a few super elites or something. But I mean, certainly not being taught to the general public. So
I went through like the gifted program in elementary and middle school-ish, mostly towards the end of elementary, but it was kind of in that vein overall. Like, there was definitely an emphasis on kind of meta processing or something, or like just early introduction to thinking about thinking type stuff.
It's good if those programs work as intended, but like the problem is that like education is an industry, and like if people are concerned with their, I mean, most people are just doing it in the same sense that like a, you know, checkout cashier is doing it, right?
Well, most people are going about their lives that way.
Well,
right?
So the only I think the only good teachers I ever had, and again, I say teachers, but it was really only like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 people.
Yeah.
But were the ones that were on the verge of retiring. Like they're old. Like they're like, 60, 70.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to retire. So they didn't care, right? So like they'd reverted to just being honest. Right? Like if someone was like, "Oh, like what you're saying is offensive," they'd just be like, "Yeah, but it's true and I don't care." Right? So right, or like if I would turn in like a assignment that had if I had some like fluff or something wrong, they would just be like, "Nah, this is nonsense," or "This is completely wrong." Read this book; it'll explain why. And then they would just give me like a low grade or something. I'd be like, "Oh shit!" But like those are the people that I actually learned from, right?
Yeah,
because they didn't care, right? They weren't trying to they weren't trying to make me feel better. They weren't trying to they didn't care what. They're just analyzing it objectively.
Sure.
And they're like, okay, yeah, like whoever this person is, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Here's why. If you care enough to follow it up, okay. But if you don't really,
Yeah.
But most teachers are not incentivized to do that.
Right.
Because then the person, the student's gonna be like, oh, they're being insensitive, or they're, being, I don't know, offensive, I don't know, whatever, however they would interpret it now. But so most people their ego is going to get in their way of their critical thinking, right? So it's another reason it's not really no one is incentivized to teach it.
Yeah,
because I mean, what's like
yeah, I mean, like, to be a good teacher is more of a personality trait than it is like an actual skill set, right?
Well, I think you can learn it as a skill set, but
it's not taught.
It's not
that
really,
way, right?
I think increasingly it's just.
I do wonder what that whole certification system is.
Yeah.
Like, what do teachers go through to become teachers? Probably a lot of bullshit, if I had to guess.
Well, that's what. Yeah. So that's what they likely do, right? So that's one reason. I certainly don't try like anything that's coming out. Anything that's coming out now. Well, again, like the people that I was learning from at the time, like they were old enough that they probably got started like. I'm trying to think when at least like what 50 years ago or more at the time. So it was probably like, so they were being exposed to a completely different set of standards, right, than would obtain now, right?
Yeah.
So they had different expectations. Like they didn't care about your feelings or like how you would take things. They'd just be like, oh no, you need like this is inaccurate because of this or blah, 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 or like. They actually had some real more grounding in material,
right?
Rather than just like interpretations of it or like what all interpretations are valid. Well, in some cases, but in other cases they're kind of not, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean that's partly like cultural, I guess, or cultural the moment of the culture, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So kind of just goes back to living in not that great of a cultural moment overall, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, like the old man that I was hanging out with and drinking with today, like he was playing around with DeepSeek, and he was like, oh, this, and it's in Japanese, right? So he's like, oh, this is very helpful. It's answering all my questions. But when I started asking it about Tiananmen Square, it mysteriously said that it was busy. Right? He's like, I wonder why that is. Right?
Yeah.
So
sure. Yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of things like that. They're kind of funny like that. But
yeah. I mean, that's China's branding, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like, I tried to introduce my grandpa to ChatGPT, but he didn't really have much interest.
Didn't really vibe with it.
He just didn't even try, right? He was just like, "Oh, I have enough to do." So, like, all right.
Sorry, man. I mean, people get into. Like, there's a lot of writers that just still use like either pen and paper or like a word processor from like 1981 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy that writes those Game of Thrones things, like he uses like a floppy disk computer. Like those books are on like 1981 floppies.
George R.R. Martin.
Yeah,
that's what he writes on.
Like he uses
why?
He's just in that groove, man. Right? Like his way of.
So if you were to hand him a MacBook Pro, it would blow his.
It's just like he's just.
How old is he?
Like almost 80 or something.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Yeah.
So it's not that like, I mean, I'm sure like, okay, if you forced him to use like a modern computer, I'm sure he could, but I think just for him, it's like almost already too much.
Right.
Like he doesn't need that much, I guess overhead or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like other, stuff that.
Yeah.
Would complicate it too much,
right,
or something. Yeah, I mean, I know people like my friend Quentin, the writer. Like he writes everything by hand, right, in notebooks. So to me, that's crazy, right? I'm like,
then he types it up.
Yeah. I'm like, isn't that like crazy? Like to me, it just seems crazily inefficient and time consuming. But for him, it works, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I guess like it becomes a kind of question of medium, right? If you can't feel like you can channel your inner voice through typing, then but
just like I feel like the way my mind works is very like based on like Microsoft WordPad from like I don't know 1996 or something, right? So like it's very like it is like a computer program, but it's a very like simple one. Doesn't have like too many menus and like so I still get, if I open a program there's like too much menu crap, or like if it's like separating the page, like if it's doing too much
that's
stuff,
just
I'm
bad UX, right? So it's more, I feel like UX got like pretty bad around like mid 2000s or something, like thinking back to like Photoshop back in that day, and it was just it probably still is pretty bad, to be honest, but just the like clusterfuck of menus and pop-up windows and just seemingly disjointed stuff. Or
the worst is anything that gives you suggestions. I'm like, no.
Oh, like any autocorrect or something?
I do. I'm like, I do not need input from any.
I mean, again, that's also bad UX, right? But like, what if it literally predicted the exact sentence you're about to write? Then you'd use it, right? Like literally, word for word, what you're thinking and trying to write. You press tab and it's there, right?
In what? But I mean,
like this is on the roadmap, right? It's not that far, right?
I don't know, man. I have a hard time. Well, again, like everything that currently exists, anytime it's been turned on, it'll be like, did you mean this? Or like all suggestions. I'm like, no, I did not mean that. No, that is not what I'm trying. No, I'm using a different word that's not in your database.
Like when you're writing, I guess. I mean, that becomes quite specialized, I guess.
Well, that's what I mean, right? So I'm like anything, like Grammarly, or like anything that is like trying to impose a normative model, including like spellings and other words that'll underline.
Do you use autocorrect on your phone?
I try not to, because again, it's just always wrong for most of the time. So so all that stuff is worse. So I'd be perfectly happy with a 1995 level WordPad that's just like an open document, because it's not going to interfere with my grammar or words or anything. But using a pen and paper, I mean, that's a little bit but seems the ability to edit things other than just like seems like you're.
I'm way too messy writing. I'm always crossing stuff out. I can't.
Feels like it's gonna kill a bunch of notebooks.
I can't be trusted with any level of permanence.
But I mean, again, like there's a lot of people that's how they write, right? They just use the pen and pad and
the
paper.
quill and the inkwell.
Yeah. Which is I mean, it's interesting, but I like a little bit of freedom to like delete and move things around without having oversight or other suggestions or anything.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, does Quentin, right?
Quentin, yeah.
Quentin?
Yeah.
Does he like reorganize stuff? Like, what's his editing flow?
I don't even know, man.
like?
I mean, I think he does like rewrite things when he's going through it, but I don't really know what.
Does he publish frequently or pretty slowly?
Like every year, a book usually.
Yeah.
So he's writing a lot.
Yeah.
But
and rewriting a lot.
Yeah, rewriting and handing. Yeah.
It's pretty intense. Yeah, I mean, if that's what your process is like, that's what it is, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's a little bit different, I think. But yeah, a lot of people are using these like really outmoded, 1981 computers or whatever, just to floppy disks or whatever. Yeah. Wonder if they still. I'm sure they must still make them somewhere.
Well, there's the trend of like the dumb phone. Have you heard of this?
Oh, just like a really like clamshell phone or
that type of stuff, or like e-ink displays with like you do have apps, but like you have Spotify and Maps basically, right? So I wonder if there's anything similar happening with like computer or typing stuff. Probably not.
I'm sure there would be, right? There'd be some basic super basic programs,
but probably just like a operating system, right? Probably just some like Linux wrapper that you log in and there's just a word processor.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That'd be kind of cool, actually. I feel like I'd probably vibe with that.
Well, you should use ChatGPT to teach you how to build a computer
simple computer.
Yeah,
simple computer.
How to install Linux on it. Debug the error codes and compatibility issues.
Yeah.
That's what AI. I'm having a great time with stuff like that.
You're building a computer now,
literally,
from scratch. I think Brandon did this too. Like Brandon was building some for a while.
What do you use it for? Just
I don't know. He showed me one thing that was like a computer without the casing, but it was just like the circuit boards. It was like functional or something.
Oh, was it like an open case?
Well, no, it was just like
just completely open.
It was like a naked computer.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that safe, I guess, for the components.
I guess, but
you can do that.
It's working.
Right? Just wire everything up.
Yeah.
So I'm building a racing simulator, like a driving simulator.
Oh, cool.
And I'm gonna learn to drift in it, and then I'm gonna buy a car and drift in real life.
Try to do it in real life. Yeah,
just calling my shots.
Or just like buying the components.
Just
online or whatever.
Kind of laying in the corner. There,
got kind of cool. Yeah.
Motherboard, got a CPU cooler, cryo sheet, which is like instead of the grease that goes between the cooler and the CPU. It's like a graphene sheet that conducts heat even better.
That's cool.
A few other stuff down there. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be kind of an interesting build. It's going to be very compact. And I mean, it's going to be like, I don't know, this size, basically. Just like a little, have a handle on it and you can carry it around and stuff.
You use Linux or?
Nah, Windows probably. I mean, all gaming stuff's on Windows. Basically, they've somehow
cornered the market.
I don't know if it's even intentionally. I think it. Yeah, that's a good question. How did that come about?
Sure, it was probably intentional, man. It's probably.
They're
always trying to do. I mean, they're trying to monopolize. Like Microsoft.
Microsoft was always like corporate and very enterprise focused, right?
Yeah, but they definitely got quite proprietary, right?
Well, I mean, it's like gaming chose Windows more so than like Windows chose gaming or something.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe it's just like none of the other paradigms, like the Mac kind of
made sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mac was very like proprietary, right? Like you can, but you can't really build a like Mac OS computer.
I don't know if I said this to you or Brandon, but I said like someone got me. I think it was about 10 years ago. A bunch of my friends like very kindly got me a new MacBook. What was at the time a new MacBook?
Right.
Because they're like, oh, you should try to do work or something on it. And it was like, oh yeah, thanks. And I was just like, this is a very pretty computer, and everything looks really great until you try to do things with it. I'm like, this is, I don't know, just like
what
nothing.
year was this?
Like 2013 or 12 or something.
Yeah.
And just like everything seemed, I don't know, it was like everything seemed like it should have worked, but it somehow either sort of didn't or was like more effort than.
But I mean, you're talking about like even basic stuff like typing.
Everything seemed, everything just seemed like kind of weirder than it. I mean,
there's a learning curve, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but I spent a lot of time with it trying to figure it out, and still ended up feeling like Windows was better or something, or just a normal laptop with Windows would have been easier to.
My background is like we had Mac in schools, right? Like we grew up. Oh, did you as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was
like elementary school.
Ancient, yeah. I mean, really ancient.
Okay.
Ones from like the
color backs.
Yeah.
I forget what those are even called. Then the Emacs came along, the white matte gloss type thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to even remember
matte gloss.
But
like I always hated them because the education system was super restrictive.
Okay,
on them.
yeah.
They really have the parental controls dialed in.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to remember what I even. Yeah, I definitely felt their phones are much easier to use than their actual computers.
Yeah, there's a bit of a gap there. I mean, I don't like iPhones because I feel like they try to abstract too much. Like, for example, it's hard to like get the file off of the phone.
True.
Like, it's all like wrapped behind layers of apps and sharing menus and like just give me the file, right? Like I'm trying to put it on my computer.
That's when like when you asked me to resend you those PDFs, like I had to like open line on my laptop,
right,
and then drag the files in, like, because I can't send, like I don't know how to send it from.
Like it's kind of nonsense, right?
But like, so it's so bizarre because you can open line on a PC and manually drag the files into the chat,
right?
And it'll send, which is what I did. But you can't like do it from the phone. Like, well, this is weird. Like,
I mean, this is like Apple's UX philosophy where they treat you like you're a child, right? Like scary PDF files, like, you know, share Facebook, right? Like it's like designed for like a grandma, right?
You have to do bizarre cross-cutting, like you have to like use like 6 different programs to like get something actually delivered or sent. Like
that's why I can't get on iPhone. It's just I like Androids. I mean, on Android you can still like access the file system and like actually like
it does sound better. I mean, I guess I've just gotten used to
get used to it.
I've just gotten used to the insane workarounds, but like I agree, it is incredibly bizarre sometimes when you're trying to like figure out how to like send actual files and documents and like but I do remember having trouble with this on the actual MacBook too.
There's a bit of a learning curve.
I also couldn't, like, things wouldn't transfer. Like I was like, what format is, like, I don't know. It's such a
like I'm largely switched over to Mac OS, like MacBooks and whatnot. But again, like I hated them up until I was like, I don't know, like 20 years old or something, and I finally managed to make the switch and start to understand, I guess, like I don't know, even like navigating the windows and stuff, there's a lot of these gestures and stuff that are quite nice actually. And I think they kind of like spatially map into your like brain better than like
it's more like
tab
ergonomic
on Windows
or something.
So overall, it is a better experience, and in some ways, even like Mac OS exposes the lower level stuff better than Windows because you do have that like Linux kernel,
right? And
so you have like terminal and I don't know, stuff that you just don't really do too much on Windows. Anyway, we'll see what it's like back on Windows, but I basically
kind of feel you got more used to Mac OS, right? Yeah.
I'm sure I can still use Windows. I've used it in the past as well, but
Man, I just feel like basic ass computers from back in the day were just so much more.
Well, like what?
Well, you know, like Windows 95 tier, like that era of computers, because like everything was very limited, but you could work with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you knew what kind of how it functioned, and like you could kind of.
Well, where do you not feel that now? I guess, or
it feels like it's just too much is happening, and like apps or like I don't know, things have gotten way more complex, I guess. And the other thing is endless updates.
Yeah,
it's just like back in the day, you just did not have to do that like every other day,
right?
Like just
is it on the Windows every other day?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Mac OS does a better job at that.
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, it. Occasionally bites you, and you lose like half a day just trying to like update.
Yeah, well, it feels like it's every other day. Almost. It's just like no, it needs to restart for another. Like okay, like it's getting definitely feels like it gets a bit. That's just ramped up beyond belief, but yeah. How are we doing for time here?
Probably, let's see here. Yeah, probably just do another like 5 or something.
Yeah, let's cap it.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting energy levels while so last night it's hard to fall asleep due to like heightened adrenaline and norepinephrine or whatever. Then had like in my like sleep activity charts, like the first half I had like deep sleep, then the second half was basically just like light sleep and dreaming. Had some pretty strange dreams.
You think from fasting?
Yeah, I think so. I think just more wakefulness due to heightened like adrenaline and norepinephrine or whatever. Just your body keeping you in an alert state because it thinks survival is at stake. So we'll see how tonight goes as well. But yeah, I'm kind of just bored.
With what?
Not eating. Like I kind of just want to eat
out
of to solve boredom.
I thought it was the other way, man. I was like, oh wow, this is like I have more time. Like I don't have to deal with eating.
Yeah, yeah. There's that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try like a keto diet after this to see what that is kind of like.
Okay, yeah.
The thing is, just Japanese cuisine is quite unfriendly to keto.
Yeah.
So I'll be cooking a lot more. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Not having to actually.
No, keep going.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Was just not having to deal with leaving to eat or organizing eating.
Yeah,
and I think it's kind of impulse behind those. Where there was like I forget what it's called, but there was like shakes or whatever that you're supposed to.
Oh, Soylent.
It's a horrible name for that.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff. I mean, like I don't think it actually works in practice. But
so the people who made Soylent, their latest enterprise is Lucy Nicotine. Have you heard of them?
No.
But they're making nicotine pouches. So it's just kind of funny how they
shifted over to Yeah, well, I think that was the impulse behind them trying to do that because they're like, I don't want to have to stop what I'm doing to like prepare a meal, right? Or like go and get a meal.
Certainly very
like,
appealing on that ground. Yeah.
And like I get it. I mean, like I get that there's like obviously like eating and even cooking is like an art, and it can be really fun.
Yeah.
But like if you're getting into obsessive states where you just want to like keep working on something and you're like, oh, I don't have to think of, leave the house and like
think about what you're going to eat.
Think about I'm going to eat and like, taking, an hour, whatever to just get this organized or
Yeah, there is that. There is a freedom, but then it's also just kind of like I don't know. Like I went for a walk and I definitely noticed what you mentioned where it's just like, you feel weak, right?
So you're on day 2 now or?
I'm like 40, 50 hours, 50 hours in.
Okay,
yeah.
For me, man, it didn't really kick in until day 3.
And
like,
just had no energy.
Yeah, I was feeling wobbly and
interesting. Yeah.
And when I did finally eat, it just like crashed my stomach.
Yeah.
Like it was just
you have to like reintroduce it carefully, right?
Tried and still crashed it. I mean, I just had some bread and soup. And,
carbs, right? You spiked your insulin, right?
I guess, yeah. But it was just like instant diarrhea. It was just like my system was like, what the fuck?
Probably just insulin spike, I guess. I don't know. I'm basically, it's gonna be like, I think my first meal is just gonna be broth, like bone broth. And then maybe like an egg or something, or an avocado, and try and ramp up from there. We'll see how it goes. I did more preparation with ChatGPT and whatnot, so we'll see if that pays dividends or not.
See if it works.
But yeah, I think we can wrap this up. Actually recording this the day before release, which is kind of unusual from what we've been doing. But we didn't talk about anything topical or time sensitive, oddly enough.
We the previous few ones we kind of like booked a few in advance, right? We kind of like, this one's like more fresh off the
fresh off the get cuff. back into that rhythm, I think.
Yeah. We're gonna be trying to have more
guests,
right? More upcoming guests. I mean, like, we won't reveal much about them yet, but we're trying to bring more people on that have interesting areas of experience and interesting backgrounds and takes in the next few months.
So stay tuned. Don't change that channel.
Yeah, stay tuned.
We'll be right back after this brief sponsored break message or whatever.
So it's Justin Isis 93 Instagram and Justin Isis 1 on X, and I'm on Discord and Blue Sky now too. But if you care that much, I'm sure you can just find it yourself. Or
how's you released a book recently, right? Aristocracy of Weak Nerves.
Yeah, it's just I hesitate to even call it a book. I mean, it's just a
novella.
It's just 2 stories.
Okay,
so it's like about 100 pages. Like, it's not.
What would you even call that? It's like
just
half an anthology or something.
I mean, it's just a very short, limited release. But it seems like it's going to be quite a nice edition.
Yeah.
So they used a lot of interesting new materials. And
will you get a copy yourself?
I'll be getting several copies. Probably.
Okay. Yeah. I bought a copy as well.
Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Bolster the numbers.
Yeah, we're it's almost
to read it.
It's almost sold out. I mean, I think there's maybe like another 15 or 20 copies left, and then it's the hardcover is sold out completely.
That was like an edition of 10. Right?
15, I think 15? It was 15.
Yeah, cool.
And then the paperback's almost completely sold out too.
Yeah.
So
the hardcover looked nice, but I don't know.
Nah, it's fine. Yeah. I think it did sell very quickly, like within a day or two. So but yeah, the paperback's gonna be really nice quality too. So interested to see how it comes out.
If they're still available, buy a copy on Snuggly Books.
It's actually on Occult Press, which should come up if you Google it. Or just Google me, right?
Shout out to Anna from Occult Press.
Occult Press,
very pleasant and careful person. DBLV on Instagram. That's all.
All right.
Yeah. Have a good week.
Peace.
Peace.
Yep.